gentlemen, we always knew that it was a little bit strange when they made the announcement, because already when they made the announcement at the end of August, they're saying he's going to take over October 1st, which already caught a lot of people off guard, because they're like, in any sport across the board, nowhere do you announce a new head coach and say they're starting in a month's time. So that alone was already strange. And speaking to people within Toronto FC, they're starting, and this is where it also gets confusing, because nobody's actually sure. They don't actually think he will be the manager for that October 1st game. He'll be around. He'll start to immerse himself with the team, but that Terry Dunfield will still be the head coach. It's all very strange. And I don't know, Wheels, if you kind of want to pick this one up. And obviously that game being this weekend, John Herdman's not running. I mean, as of even the taping of this on a Thursday, he has not run practice this week. So, which leads us to believe that perhaps it's true that he will not be the head coach on that game this weekend. I don't know. This is all very strange.
That weekend, I mean, the weekend's game is September 30th. So this will be the planned end to Dunfield's time in charge. And we'll see after that. If that's what you're hearing, like, I'm of the understanding that he hasn't been at training this week at all. But you think that any manager, when they take over a club, they just want to get boots on the ground, right? Like, you want to get your hands dirty. You want to start like working with these guys. And what it's created is just a really difficult situation for everyone involved, not just the coaches, but the players as well. Like, who are you playing for? What are you playing for right now? And it's fine to say pride, but when you're not sure about what the future or your future has in store, or how you fit or what you're working towards, it makes it really difficult. I've never seen a situation play out like this. And just this massive delay in terms of someone taking over a new job. And I wonder why. Like, why is it? I don't have the answer to that. My understanding is that all club business is kind of run to a halt in terms of the on-field stuff. Like the off-field stuff, like selling tickets and seasons and sponsors, like all that. That's a completely different beast. But I'm talking about like footballing decisions, and there's a lot of them that need to be made. They have the super draft upcoming, where they're going to have a number 1 or number 2 pick this year. That's important to plan for. Recruitment, what things are going to look like, academy functioning. Like, how is this thing going to be taken forward? And it sounds like all the power, this is very much going to turn into Herdman FC. So John's going to call the shots. John's going to pull the strings. John's going to play a massive role here. It sounds like they might be wanting to hire a new technical director or someone else that can help Jason Hernandez on maybe an assistant general manager. I've heard whispers, that sort of thing. But what's that person? Who's that going to be? And it feels like right now everyone inside that building is just waiting for Herdman to take over, bring in his staff, and then try to figure things out from there. But we've gone through over a month now. Like, time is money. Time is of the essence. Like, you can never have enough time to plan, prepare, and get things right. So right now, it just feels like everyone is treading water. It's just a really interesting thing if, like, basically the reins are going to be handed over to John Herdman to run the club, because that's kind of what they did with Bob Bradley from the on-field thing. That didn't work. And it's very ironic that this is exactly why Greg Vanney's not the manager in Toronto anymore, because they weren't willing to relinquish more of the footballing decisions to him. Thus, he felt like he had to go. And I know this for a fact. Like, Herdman wanted a specific young player who's playing at a massive European club right now, wanted to bring him in, develop him. It would be good for the club, could potentially sell him on for big bucks later, kind of like what Atlanta's doing with Thiago Almada, but he was turned down. Instead, they went a different route with an older player. And I knew at that time how angry Vanney was after winning so much and wanting to take the club forward and not being able to allow to do that. Now he is out. But now you're going to be handing all football decisions now over to this coach at this time. It's just the direction and how it's going to be done. If it's all John Herdman, it could work. I mean, John Herdman's great at building out his teams, but it's just right now, I think a lot of people inside that building are looking at one another saying, what is happening? And they're just sitting around waiting.
I wonder, Ollie, and to your point, this could be absolutely brilliant. this could maybe be what every new coach needs, is a chance to actually observe, stand back, see what's going on, get to know the behind the scenes, who's in charge of what, who has say over here, how does this work, how does your academy work, how does that flow work. I mean, maybe this is absolutely brilliant. It's just unheard of in the world of sports that you make an announcement that this is your new coach, and yet we're not going to see him for like over a month.
Yeah, I've kind of been leaning that way. Like, I think there might be some method to the madness here. It is very strange, and my first instinct was, that's unusual not to kind of properly start taking the team. I said when they were going through the hiring process, I think they needed an appointment sooner rather than later, because if you make one in December, January, the season's upon you very, very quickly, and there's a lot of work to do here. But they have made the appointment. He is in the job and presumably planning for next season. And I am kind of inclined to say, like, if I was coming into this to TFC as the new manager, I might not want to touch this first team squad either, because quite frankly, like, it's not going to be the squads that you're coaching next season. Like, it's going to be vastly different, or at least I think it should be vastly different. And maybe if that is the case, that Herdman is, just taking a step back, saying, I'm going to observe, I'm going to, see how things work here and kind of get my read that way. That to me kind of indicates that he feels that way, that this thing needs to be blown up and that there needs to be a massive overhaul of the playing squad. And if I'm a TFC fan, I think that's a good sign. Like, I don't want a manager coming in at this point. I don't want a coach coming in and thinking, well, Bob Bradley, who's this vastly experienced coach who has had tons of success in MLS, couldn't get anything out of this team, but I can. I'm the guy who's going to turn this around and turn all these players around. I don't think it's worth trying. I think you need to make changes to the squads. I think you need to ship a load of players out. You need to do whatever it takes to try and move Insigne and Bernadeschi, which is going to be very difficult. There's a long list of players that are on contracts that aren't good beyond them as well that I'd be trying to move. And you need to rebuild this thing. And maybe from that perspective, like, why would you want to come in and take 2 games and work with the group as it's currently constructed?
But don't you want to start working with that team, that group, as soon as possible? Because guess what? Some of the players you might want to move on, you won't be able to, because it's impossible based on their contract. Go ahead, Jordan. I want to get to work right away. Boom.
Tag me in. I want a manager. Granted, I'm not saying John Herdman is saying that he won't start on the first. But if it does go longer, I want a manager. I want to play for a manager that rolls up their sleeves, said you're appointed, and I want to already start working with you. Your left foot stinks. I want a manager to come in, even in the worst season of the club history, and start working with me. Start working with the club. Start immersing yourself on day one, not sitting back and you're kind of my manager, you're kind of not. Like we talk about footy and the energy and the chemistry, but also the biggest thing for me is the relationship. Like, you go out and battle for your club when you feel happy, when your manager knows, like, your wife's name, your kids' name, they feel good when they roll up to the stadium. Mm-hmm. But also there's that trust. I think you have to start that as soon as you can. The fact that you already went to October 1st, I mean, I get it in some respects. You want maybe a clean slate, but you got to think about how detrimental this could be, looking at a team that you're supposed to coach that could be different and probably will be different next season. But you're almost the image of you're there with your arms crossed and just looking at things unfolding. And this player is like, we're having the worst season ever. We're crap. And we need something new. We need someone fresh. So to wait months, that could also put him behind the 8 ball. Granted, we're speculating. We don't know what's happening. But for me as a player, that's what it screams to me. If I've had the worst season possible, I've been with the club for 2 years or 10, and you're just kind of looking and waiting by the sidelines, and you're appointed, but you're not getting into that could really be Achilles heel when February comes next season.
What's even crazier about this, Jordan? Like, there was an international window in this month.
2 weeks,
right?
Yeah,
like,
to go in.
I get that.
Sure.
I get there's like personal things, and like it's a big move. You're living on the West Coast and assembling your staff, but like a lot of these things can be. And the off season's like, you're gonna have a couple months.
We have managers do this in 4 or 5 days. Move from other sides of the world. Come in and then get immersed and acclimated. So, like, Ollie, I love you to bits, but if I'm playing for TFC and John Herdman is standing there on October 15th and hasn't coached yet, I'm saying, what's going on?
Well,
like,
here's the thing.
I smell.
Well, here's the thing, Jordan. Like, if you've had the season that some of these TFC players have had, and I don't think you ever would, because I think too highly of you for that to be the case. I want you to be uncomfortable at this point. I want you to be
Fair.
looking over your shoulder and wondering what this coach thinks of me. And like, it's not been good enough.
Good
Like
point.
they shouldn't be, you know, having themselves coddled at this point. And, oh, a new coach is going to come in and make me better. And he's going to take it. Like, no, everyone should be worrying about the future at this club because it's been,
But that's not
it's been
how
a million miles away.
that's not happening.
That's true,
People I'm talking to are like, the training sessions are just, I feel bad for what's Terry Dunfield supposed to do? What's he supposed? What's his
it's a tough
coaching
spot
staff
for Terry.
supposed? I feel so like you know, we all know Terry really well. I feel awful for him because he's just being hung out there to dry. Like, and this is his own managerial record that he's put on the line. And you have a group of players that aren't playing for you, and they're wondering about the next manager, but he's not there yet. So look, this is just all part and parcel. You know, if Herdman is spending this time getting the off-field things aligned and building out a team and using the resources that he has there, that's fine. From what I'm hearing, everyone's just kind of sitting around and waiting right now, which meant this is time that you can actually do work.
Oh, am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
Teams that do not.
Yeah.
I do not want to be in this box. This box is upsetting me today. Teams that do not qualify for the playoffs, their managers can actually keep them for 6 weeks, essentially until the MLS Cup is awarded. So the manager can actually say, we're going to still train. So I guess that's the other thing is that, yes, okay, to your point, like how much time is he going to have the team? Well, he might actually have quite a bit of time because they're not going to qualify for the playoffs, and he can step in and say, we're going to be training for the next month and a half. And we're going to see who has what, who can give what, whose attitude is what. So if he chooses to exercise that, he actually will have a solid month or so with these players once the season ends, because they ain't going to the playoffs. We all know that. Anyways, we'll keep an eye on that. This weekend's fast approaching, so we'll find out. By next week, we'll know if John Herdman is in the building and doing anything with these players.